I think pornography should be banned.
We disagree.
Let's discuss. Cue the intro. Okay, that's fine. She's laughing. It's fine. Okay, I'm gonna.
It's because you looked at me with such like desperate eyes.
That's what Jacob does. That's what Jacob does.
That's what Gordon Ramsay does.
Okay. Shh. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Objective Hour. Today, we're here to talk about pornography and its effect on the population. Mainly about whether or not pornography should be banned because of its impact on the youth, on the mental health of people, and the physical health of people. Joined here with me today is Will, one of our co-hosts, and the beautiful Edith. Do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Hi, my name is Edith. I'm a first year politics, philosophy, and economics student. And I'm here to talk about how everyone should watch pornography 24 hours of the day.
We're gonna clickbait that. That is the best thing ever. Okay, so I don't think that pornography is good for humanity, and I'll tell you guys why later on. It mainly surrounds the abuse of the porn industry towards young women, majority. Its effect on how men think about women, on the reliance of men, and how it changes the neurology of the brain, and other objectification and ethical concerns. But to start off and make things easy, let's have some of your opinions about pornography. I know that it's probably a common thing for people of our age to consume pornography. What do you think? What do you think the positive externalities and negative externalities are of porn?
Well, for me, I think undoubtedly there are more negatives than positives to pornography.
Okay.
However, I believe it's wrong to say there are no positives at all to pornography, because I think there are maybe a couple things which, when you view it as a whole, could be beneficial to a teenage boy or teenage girl.
Okay.
Or teenage day.
Such as?
It's a good stress reliever. I mean, it's proven that it releases dopamine.
Okay.
In the stressful years of exams and whatnot.
Yeah. And oxytocin.
Yeah, and oxytocin. I think we can all agree that it is one one option for stress relieving.
Yes. And you?
Well, I would actually disagree with Will on the point that it's a stress reliever in itself, because it's actually the act of masturbation that's said to cause, stress relief and things like that, not the porn.
That's true.
So there is a possibility where you can masturbate without porn.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm saying that I don't think it should be banned is not because I agree with porn, because I do believe that it could have a very negative impact overall. I believe it has a net negative impact.
Yeah.
However, I do believe that banning it would lead to things that are more harmful.
Yeah.
And so banning it could be potentially more harmful than allowing porn to exist.
Okay, so what do you think would be the negative consequences of banning porn?
Well, if you think about the porn industry as it is already quite taboo and quite filled with exploitation.
Yeah.
However, I think that if you were to illegalize it, then people would have, obviously porn would still exist. You're not going to outlaw it completely.
Yeah.
But just by banning it doesn't mean that you would outlaw it. People would still create it. Well, it does mean that you would outlaw it, but yeah, I think people would still create it. However, the fact that it's illegal would now create a more unsafe space for women than if it were legal. Because at least with legal, when it's legal, there can be some kinds of protections.
Yeah.
But as soon as it's illegal, it can't be regulated at all.
It's like, I've got something to add. So it's kind of like I was telling you off camera, like cocaine. If you ban cocaine, if you have cocaine, if you make it legal, you can have doctors checking if it's safe or not. If it's illegal, you're going to source it from who knows where. And as a result, it's, if you're addicted, you're not going to just magically stop watching porn because it's illegal. You're just going to find elsewhere to get it. And as a result, you might, if it's legal, you could pay these big companies, like, you could watch it, and they have like contracts, they do testing for their actresses, and it's like it's much more ethical than just just watching it on the black market or whatever.
Well, similarly, if you think about abortions, making abortions illegal, people are still going to be having abortions, but they're going to have to be going to backroad doctors who give them abortions with coat hangers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I agree with your point about abortion, but I have very nuanced views on that, so I'll leave it to another episode.
It was just kind of an example of how, do you know what I mean?
A little teaser.
Yeah, so I don't agree that cocaine can be used as an equivalent for porn. Especially because cocaine is already an illegal substance, and I think that it being an illegal substance was the correct decision by most governments of the world. I do think that not all things that are morally bad should be banned. For example, I don't think adultery should be made illegal, and the reason for that is because if you're, for example, an 18-year-old, right, male or female, first relationship, second relationship, or like early relationships, if you are adulterous, right, and you've technically committed a crime, you're a felon now, it basically says that it doesn't give you the opportunities to make mistakes, right? That's one thing. The second thing is, I don't believe that the capitalist economy incentivizes adultery. But that is not the same for something like cocaine or pornography. For cocaine and pornography, there are people economically benefiting by the production of it, right? So if you don't ban it, you are basically increasing the moral hazard of people trying to exploit consumers of pornography or cocaine. And that's why I think it's a very good decision to ban cocaine, and likewise, it's a good decision to ban pornography. Yeah?
I mean, don't you think that by it being legalized, legal, if I'm watching it, or in some extreme cases, someone who pays for a subscription or buys a package or whatever thing they do on the websites.
Yes.
Of course, I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
Those go to essentially the wages and what the actresses are paid.
Right.
And so does that not come by your argument?
I don't think that incentivizing the production of something that you two believe is negative generally anyways is a good idea.
Well, I mean, a lot of women who and males who do enter the industry, a lot of them have come out and said that maybe they didn't really have any other choice in life. Maybe that they were financially at disadvantage from a young age, and they really only had this kind of path to go towards.
Right.
When they're young, they kind of just stay there. And one argument for pornography not being banned is that having these companies that kind of take them in and pay them, even though it could be viewed as immoral work, it's still paying their wages and putting food on their tables, which they otherwise might not be able to do.
Do you think prostitution should be legal then?
No.
Okay.
Should be legal or illegal?
Legal.
No.
Okay, well, same argument though.
No.
Okay.
Because I think there's a small difference, is that prostitution, from what I know, is I'm paying someone else for sex.
Okay.
Whereas pornography is a company getting...
Not necessarily a company. Not necessarily.
Okay, but if
people are getting paid for putting out content of them having sex.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you think there's
or performing
difference.
sexual acts.
It's more
it
like I'd say pornography is more like 50-50, whereas because they're both getting paid, whereas in prostitution it's just one person paying for the other. You know what I mean?
What about pimps? They usually take a commission.
And a high one at that.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Okay.
I would like to just butt in here and say I think that, as I said before, I think pornography is bad overall. However, the reason I'm saying that it should not be banned is because it's very difficult. And so it's very delicate. You need discernment to be able to tell between. There's soft porn, there's a lot of negative things about porn. However, banning it outright is a very complicated process and could lead to more evils. So maybe one could argue that it's the lesser of two evils.
Okay.
Because let me pose this question
Yeah.
to you. If, let's say that it was not banned, but instead it was regulated.
Okay.
So people would, be able to have their rights protected and things like that.
Okay.
But then who would regulate it? We would have like BBC porn.
Yeah. Well,
no, like BBC, like British network.
Okay.
You know what I mean, guys?
Well, I mean, I know I'm supposed to be on your side, but I mean,
Like the radio station,
Yeah.
just to clarify.
yeah. But I mean, there are. I think I read somewhere that people are supposedly regulating the videos on Pornhub.
Yes.
But they are like, in reality, they're just kind of just like flicking through, and I'm pretty sure there's been cases of like child porn and
Yeah. In 2020, New York Times actually published that Pornhub had underage children who were victims of human trafficking, and they were fined only $13 million out of however much money they
Yeah.
gained from it. And
Yeah.
I would say that that's not efficient regulation.
It's not. It's definitely
Yeah.
not. Especially if you employ people to make sure these websites stay off the sites,
Yes.
but they're not being kept. But they're still on the sites. It's not effective regulation, which I agree with you.
So, Edith, your proposal is that the state should regulate pornography.
Not necessarily my proposal, I'm just saying what if.
Okay,
Can we just define pornography really quickly?
sure, yeah.
Are we taking pornography to be any kind of content that contains sexual material? Because then we would have to take, there's kind of a grey area there, anything for the education of doctors, for midwives.
Even for like
Is a video of a vagina inherently sexual in nature?
yeah, like
I think, well, at least for me, right? When I hypothetically, if one were to want
Allegedly.
to release their sexual tensions in their body, right? One would try to look for something like, sex instead of like childbirth or whatever.
yes.
Okay, so something that's intended for sexual purposes.
Unless
Yes,
but what
yes.
if someone's
But then there's a grey area there.
what if someone's niche is childbirth?
Okay, I think that's an extreme minority.
And that's also not intended for sexual pleasure. I don't think.
Okay.
I would
Yeah.
hope.
No, someone could jerk off to like a picture you post on Instagram, right?
Okay.
We're gonna have to cut that bit.
I don't think that's that bad.
No. I just said the name of someone who we know did that in the
Oh
past.
shit.
Just put like a bleep
I'll
over.
bleep. Okay.
Okay, but okay.
Let's talk a bit more about the externalities. I feel like we should talk about both the positives and negatives.
Okay.
Should I start?
Yes, start. Go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, the vast majority of pornography can be argued to be violent towards women. Let's take, for example, things that are now being normalized through frequent exposure in pornography that, let's say 20, 30 years ago would not have been so normal. Take autoerotic asphyxiation,
What is that?
otherwise known as choking. Before,
Oh, okay.
in the past, when pornography was not as easily accessible and as normalized as it is now to watch, there may have been one or two odd couples who were, branching out and going off the rails. And now you'll get 15-year-olds thinking, having their first time and thinking, oh, it's normal to do this because this is what I've seen and like this is what everyone does now.
Right.
Which is inherently violent towards women. I'm not saying some women don't enjoy it. However, it is an act which is violent kind of in nature that is being normalized.
Right.
I think, and like assumed that everyone wants that kind of thing and that that's a normal part of sex. I think also it enforces racial stereotypes in a very negative way. People are reduced to their body parts. People are, like, for example, if you take in pornography, the language used to describe black people, for instance, in what other situation would it be normalized in, like, kind of okay to call a black person a beast, for example, or like comparing them to an animal. Bro, why are you smiling,
No,
bro?
I have actually
Let
never.
me tell you something, guys.
I've rarely. Actually, I don't know if I've heard it.
Yeah. I don't think I've heard. Actually, no.
If you think about like Asian people as well, like petite Asian, like da 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 da.
Oh,
You
right.
know,
No, but beast is normally for like.
It's a compliment.
yeah, that's what I'm
That's like-
saying. That's what I'm saying. But like you see it more in black people, in referring to black people in pornography than you do describing white
yeah.
people. And like Latinas, for example, and let's also talk about pedophilia
Yeah.
and barely legal. Where else would that be normalized? It'd be like, oh yeah, that's a category. Oh yeah, like barely legal. How it's such a large category that lots of people are watching. You know, and people say, okay, well, not many people watch that, but it's such a huge category that people must be watching that, otherwise it wouldn't be so large of a category. So, barely legal, you know,
what's the
kind
category?
of normalize barely legal.
Oh, is that?
Oh,
category?
that is. They usually put it at the thumbnail. Not thumbnail. What's it called? The title.
Yeah, barely
yeah.
legal teen.
Yeah. Even like
Oh.
Lillian Phillips. Like, oh, I'm fucking 16-year-old.
Lillian Phillips.
No.
Lily Phillips.
No, Lillian's her full name.
Wait, what's her
I
name?
didn't know you were on formal terms like that. Lily.
Lily Phillips.
But her
Yeah.
full name is Lillian. That
How do you know?
because we were doing some research beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm
We're doing
sure
a lot
he
of
was.
research before. Okay, nah, fine.
Not
Which camera,
not
by the way,
not
is-
like that.
What? This is recording on YouTube. This is
Okay,
recording me.
perfect. So I know which one to look into to
Yeah.
break the fourth wall when you say something.
Right, but so Lillian Phillips, Lily fucking Phillips, okay? She was literally posting like reels and Bonnie Blue
Yeah.
when she was sitting in the car, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in Australia. I'm gonna
that's-
film like porn with 16-year-old kids,
She's-
barely
but
legal.
she's-
That's just wrong. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that reinforces your point.
Yeah, I'm saying like, and the thing is, the fact that porn is so normalized and so like kind of blasé now, I think like casual and colloquial to talk about, and for it to exist, like no one thinks of it as a big deal. But
Right.
to have, you know, things normalized like barely legal and,
Yeah.
you know, racial stereotypes are negative in net.
Okay.
Can you think of an example in which a racial stereotype would be a positive thing, Will?
I mean, I'm supposed to be on your side, so ask him the question.
Okay,
I
can
think-
you think of
No,
anything?
but I mean,
I think the racial stereotype that black people have bigger penises is actually just correct.
it is correct because like people
In
like,
general, it is.
I didn't say
correct.
anything about them having a bigger penis.
I
I,
mean, you
said
said
calling them a
beast.
beast.
I mean,
Okay.
And the thing is, that's exactly proved my point, because the fact that it's so normalized about, you know, black men to be called beasts to imply they have a bigger penis, like you associate beast with them having a large penis.
But I've never.
Not
I've
in-
really rarely heard
like
someone.
I've like genuinely the only time I've ever heard a black guy called a beast is watching KSI in like 2015.
Well, have you done research into black male porn? Maybe.
Not in particular. I
well
don't-
then, maybe not.
Okay.
You know?
So you've done a lot of research.
No,
on black
I
male
haven't
porn.
done a lot of research,
okay.
guys. I have done no such thing.
Okay.
I'm just saying I've
But
seen
yes,
it.
okay, I agree with your point. I mean, talking about choking.
What's it called? Autoerotic
Autoerotic asphyxiation.
asphyxiation. What's it called? Auto. Like you choke yourself.
Maybe it's like autonomous that you just naturally do it.
No, actually, maybe autoerotic asphyxiation is choking yourself. Okay, let's just call it erotic asphyxiation.
Or just call it choking. But
I don't think I'd be turned on if it. Anyways, yeah.
okay, anyways, I mean, I
love that we
agree-
get insight into Tom's
agree-
sexual pleasure.
I agree with you. I agree with
Can we please put that in the intro, please?
What?
Please, can that be the
Okay,
that
fine,
be the
whatever.
thumbnail?
Yeah,
Him,
that'll be
like,
the-
choking
Okay.
himself.
Anyways, when you were talking about choking, I agree with you to say that pornography is bad in the sense that it normalizes this behavior, especially with 16, 17-year-olds who are just doing it because they see it online. I agree that it is a bad thing. However, I think pornography, there is a benefit there, which is it helps people kind of discover their sexual desires and fantasies, because I think it's, especially when you go into adulthood, it's important to, well, people say it's important to keep your sex life spicy, you know, and married couples do this, and
Right.
it's, if there was no pornography and if it was banned,
Yeah.
people would just be having, you know, vanilla sex, like missionary.
What's wrong with missionary?
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you're a married couple and you have sex, I don't know how often. Like, let's say 3 times a week. You have missionary 3 times a week. That's 12 times a month. That's
It's more than you're having.
Yeah, of course it is. But
Next.
But I mean, because we're not getting taught or choking and obviously CNC, consent and non-consent. That's a lot of people are turned on by that, and I think.
By the way, let's just what's it called? Let's define that. CNC is basically what's it called? Kind of like virtual rape. So it's basically like
but
you
consent
pretend
to it.
you consent to it, but like someone's pretending to rape you.
What the hell?
But
Yeah.
there are people that are turned on by this.
Yeah.
There are
so
people.
yeah, so you do consent to it.
Yeah.
However, they're like
Yeah.
the whole act is that you're pretending.
Yeah, the whole act is that you're helping.
Guys,
Okay.
you're
yeah.
pretending like you're not consenting to it.
Okay, I have a
is the
really
point.
big question.
Like you're fighting them off.
Yeah, let's say I'm having let's say Will's having sex with like a girl, right? And then
With a white girl.
As always.
whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's say he's doing like CNC, right?
Yep.
And the girl's saying stop.
Yep.
Please stop.
No, but that's
how
why
the hell do you know
But that's
if
why
she's
you have a
being
safe
serious?
word. You have a safe word.
To say what's the safe word usually?
Okay,
You can,
avocado.
There isn't.
That's why if you say stop. No. Avocado. Okay, I'll pull out.
There isn't.
But then-
bro, there isn't an average safe word.
No, but you can just. That's why people. Do you guys know? Like you just say beforehand what's the safe word.
Yeah, you agree. But what if you
Yeah.
forget the safe word?
No, but who the hell would just randomly yell out guacamole?
Yeah, but what if you forget which word you pick?
I know, but who's yelling guacamole?
If
while
you're
they're having
hungry, I
sex?
don't know.
So you
what the
just
hell?
choose to say something random.
Oh, if
But
you forget the
randomness
random.
at the same time is
Yes.
subjective.
Okay.
So maybe they're like, guacamole.
Anyways, I think this is a deviation from
Yes.
pornography. Okay, actually, I think there's not been too much said about the positives of pornography.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot to say about that.
I mean, I just dabbled in it. You know, it can lead to the discovery of sexual desires. I think especially for adults and young adults looking to spice up their relationship or, just discover their identity.
But you can also do those things alternatively with a lot of different ways, like reading the Kama Sutra, and then you won't be, supporting an industry where you're exploiting a lot of people, especially young women, and you're making people like Andrew Tate rich and basically billionaires because he exploits women and puts them on webcams. Like, I
And he
think there's
hits
a lot of
them.
sources to do
And
that.
he hits them too.
Yeah.
I don't like how both of you are looking at me like I'm talking about Andrew Tate as if I'm like the biggest Andrew Tate dick sucker of all time. I'm not, by the way.
Right. Okay.
I'm actually not.
He found his sexual liberation through Andrew Tate videos.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your justification for banning porn?
No, she doesn't want to ban porn.
For not banning porn?
Well, I haven't been asked yet.
Okay, what's your justification for not
Well,
banning
I'm
porn?
glad you asked. I've been waiting to say. So, I think that a justification there is validity in arguments for the fact that some key word pornography can be a form of self-expression for many people. To get away from their day-to-day lives, to make them happier overall. I think education can also be important, and also kind of removing stigma and shame around something that has been used to control women. So sex and the idea of kind of sexual things has been used to control women historically. Like, for example, the whole idea that if a man sleeps with 10 women, he's the guy, but if a woman sleeps with 10 guys, then, she's a hoe or a bop or whatever.
Right.
So
yes.
it has been used as a tool to control women's behavior and to shame them
Okay,
for
yes.
something that's as natural to them as it is natural to a man.
Right.
And so in some ways, I think it could be argued that, women owning their sexual liberation, like, for example, say they put out porn of themselves and they actively want to do that, they're not being exploited, they're doing it themselves because it makes
okay.
them happy and because it releases shame for them about, what you can and can't do with your own body. So it's a form of self-expression and autonomy.
From what women to have and to feel like you should go and have to.
Well, that's why I said some. I think it's very specific because there is some pornography, and recently with the rise of Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips, it's kind of exploitation under the guise of self-liberation. Yeah. Like, let's be honest, sleeping with 1,000 men in a day and like recording yourself being like, oh, I'm so happy, and recording the line of them outside lining up, I don't think that has a positive effect. It's not for her own sexual liberation. I think she's doing it to prove a point. However, I believe that there are some circumstances in which pornography put out by someone when they're not under duress and not being exploited and it's just for themselves is not necessarily an actively bad thing.
So
like Lily Phillips is an extreme.
Okay, so like Sophie Rain for like Camilla, right?
Oh, the one with the sister.
The one with the brother.
Brother.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
The Bob House?
Okay.
I've seen a reel. Is it like is it where she's like asking her brother like? Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it pink? Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, Will told me about it.
No, it was not me.
Is it pink?
It was not me.
Like is my pussy pink? She asked her brother that.
Yeah.
He was like 15 or 14.
What the
12.
hell?
He's like spends the whole interview like talking about how his whole life is like cooked because
I've heard of the Bop House, but I didn't know like what they did. I just knew that they interviewed Ashley Trevino.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I mean,
Alexa, play Como la Flor. No? Santos?
Por favor, no.
He's seen a new? No?
No.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, but here's my question. I think to remove the stigma that sex is a sin or whatever is a good thing, right? But I don't understand why you have to do it through pornography. I think you can do it through just giving talks. I mean, in university, the first week, you're basically given mandatory lectures about sexual liberation, or at least consent or something like a lot of sexual education, especially even in high school in Britain, right? None of this in Hong Kong. When I came here, every week or every month we'd have something. Like someone would teach you about like how to have not how to have sex, but like that having sex is okay.
Yeah.
That you just have to use like protection or whatever, right? I don't understand why pornography should be allowed just to fulfill this purpose, especially since we've mentioned that it has so many negative externalities. Like, for instance, in 2015 there was a study that showed that pornography would reduce your gray matter. I mean, okay. Frequent use of pornography reduces gray matter in the brain, which reduces your ability to learn, to your memory, your intelligence. I don't think that pornography should be allowed just to achieve this goal, because there are many other ways to achieve this goal.
I mean, I would slightly disagree with you because I feel like in high school and in university when they give you talks about safe sex, whatever, consent. That's all in relation to people who are going to have sex. Whereas, that's kind of different from pornography because some people some are single or they're in long distance relationships or they just simply just can't pull and they will just never have sex for like, I don't know, until they're like 30 or something. I don't know, okay?
Incel question.
Exactly. But that's besides the point. Like if they can't or if they just don't want to. Okay, this sounds really bad.
No, just
I mean, like, if they just can't, have sex just like that,
right?
They will have to resort to porn, and in a way to, everyone produces hormones,
Yes,
and they will have to get rid of those hormones or release the sexual tension in one form or another. And if they're not having sex, they more or less have to resort to porn.
I don't think that's true. You can masturbate without porn. As Edith mentioned.
Yeah, you can, but porn is a lot of porn leads to masturbation. Like, it's like I don't know. I just read a study which said that just now.
Okay.
I'm
sure porn helps.
Yeah,
you masturbate.
It definitely helps. Yeah, and especially if there's no porn at all, like 16-year-old, 15-year-old me would have never seen a pair of tits in my life, and I would have nothing to.
In your life.
I don't remember what I was drinking milk out of when I was a baby, okay?
What? Oh, right. Okay, never mind.
But I mean, like, if I'm 15, or I would have never. I wouldn't know. So
What's the problem with not seeing a pair of tits when you're 15? You can see it when you're like 20 and you're in a relationship. You can have sex and then you.
Yeah, no, but you've got hormones which you need to, and sexual tension which you need to relieve.
Could you not do that without porn?
Imagine a world where when you're 15, you didn't know about porn, you didn't know about tits, you had sexual tension, you used it in somewhere like exercise. You'd be a much greater footballer.
No, they would. I exercise twice a day, but they had cavemen had sex all the time. No.
Okay.
Do you think porn is the reason some of these people won't have sex till they're 30?
That's a good
very
point.
That's a very good point.
Japan, like people don't have sex because, well, the industry is like apparently, allegedly, hypothetically, really like, yeah,
No, I
Love
agree.
hotels.
yeah. There you go. And prostitution's like,
It's a pretty big thing.
no, you are allowed to be a prostitute, but you're not allowed to illicit prostitution. Oh, well, no. The thing is, you cannot have penetrative sex, but you can have anal sex, blowjob, whatever. Yeah. I heard someone told me he lived in Japan.
Allegedly.
No, that's actually
That's
true.
what they
Someone who
say.
lives in Japan told me that. Yeah.
I actually would argue it from a different point to you.
Okay.
I would say, instead of saying, oh, well, you have sexual tension, I have to watch porn because, you know, I have sexual tension and I might not, you know, have a girlfriend or whatever. I think I would, the rebuttal that I would provide for your argument that, you know, you can read a book and see it there and stuff like that is, do you think that is like a truly effective way of releasing sexual shame? You know, like
Sexual shame.
reading, because like that's what we were that's what we were talking about, like education and shame, like, and making it less taboo. Like that's the whole point. That's why you were talking about people going into schools and saying, you know, it's okay to have sex. At the end of the day, do you think that is effectively going to release something that has historically been ingrained for such a long time? Unless, like, I feel like the reason that pornography might be more effective like in that sense is because people are watching other people do it, and so it's kind of like monkey see monkey do, like other people are doing it, so okay, now I feel less bad about me doing it because like there's proof that like I know it's okay, like I know what to expect. So it can also make the concept of sex and sexual relationships much less scary for lots of people because they feel like there is definitely a flip side that, you know, it has negative expectations and, you know, what a woman should look like, what a man should look like, everything like that. But at the same time, it can, you know, make people at least know what kind of thing to expect.
I agree.
Perhaps.
I'm just thinking when I was 12, 13 years old, what did I know about sex? I knew you had to insert the penis into the vagina because that's what they taught in science classes. I wasn't comfortable with actually doing it. Me having, you know, perhaps consumed some sort of media in my life, I'm still not entirely comfortable with the idea. Okay. So I would say that pornography hasn't done much to comfort me about the idea of sex. Especially since there are a lot of porn, especially nowadays, that it's gone more and more extreme.
Yeah.
But do you think that's a general rule that applies? Most people don't feel comforted, or do you think it was just you?
I don't know.
Maybe?
Well, I'm just speaking from my experience.
I mean, I think many people use pornography as a substitute for
right.
For, you know, going out and meeting new people. I think it plays a role into what Jag said just now about you don't mind me using your name, do you? No. Yeah. You know, people not having sex until they're 30 because they're just like, I've got porn, I'll just watch that instead of going to a bar and meeting someone new. It's like that, and I guess certain people are okay with that, and that's just how they want to live, which I don't think it's healthy, but it's just a fact that people, not a fact, but I can almost guarantee you that there are some people in the world that are just okay with jacking off until they're like 30 to porn.
Okay, I feel like you're quite specific, but
No, it wasn't. I promise you it's not. I promise you on my life it's not.
With your argument, for every, say, one person that feels more comfortable having sex because they watch porn, there are 1,000 young men who feel like they have to line up and have sex with someone to lose their virginity. Or, like, if you take Lily Phillips' example, like, that's so unhealthy. Like, think about the guys who are feeling like they have to like go and like that's not extorting,
Exploiting.
exploiting the young men in that situation.
I mean,
Because these are all very, very young men
Yeah.
who their moms are having to come and grab them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Is it exploiting them if they're doing it by choice? Like they're not.
Yes,
getting,
they're
not getting-
underage. They're barely legal. Their brains haven't developed it. That's why you can't fuck a 15-year-old.
Oh, as in like having them on camera having sex with Lily Phillips is exploiting them.
No, it's exploiting them just the whole situation.
I mean,
Like, if an older guy tried to have sex with loads of younger women, that would be exploitation, and it's the exact same way around.
I think I agree it's exploitation and it's disgusting, but I think there's an element of like clout to this because
Right,
Lily
of course.
Phillips and Bonnie Blue have developed a name for themselves in the last half a year, and they're basically known by everyone our age.
Yeah.
And I feel like, being in the queue and having sex with them might not be purely for pleasure or whatever. It might actually just be like, mate, I'm on a Body Blue video. Like, it could be for clout. I'm happy.
I think that's not what most people do.
Really?
I think it's most people just want to have sex with someone hot and they just have sex with Bonnie Blue. Or Lily
I
Phillips.
think there's an element of hype.
I think these guys, like the porn, how porn is affecting these guys is so healthy.
Yeah.
There are videos of people just like jacking off in the line, like waiting.
Yeah.
That's so unhealthy.
Yeah.
That's so unhealthy, and that's so from the whole porn industry.
Not the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't see how you could argue that I don't even think the benefits of porn would compare to all the unhealthy effects it has on people, especially talking about like the image of women. I think it actually reverses that. I think it worsens them when you see these people online. What do you think young men think when they see these women?
Yeah, it's objectification.
Yeah, it definitely harms, especially a growing boys like mine. They're just gonna think, oh, she's not that pretty because I've seen prettier on Pornhub, or oh, her tits aren't that big because I've
Right.
seen double Fs.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. I just picked a random letter, but I mean, the point stands. Like it definitely ruins it harms a young. I guess it's the same for women as well. Young adults and teenagers. It definitely harms their brain, and it gives them unrealistic expectations of what sex, a relationship, and what I guess a love interest should look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2016, there was a study that said that 31% of young people, which was classified as under 40, right? They had erectile dysfunction, but they had no medical problem aside from, well, it's not a medical problem, but they had excessive porn use.
Yeah.
And when you think about, what was I gonna say? like imagine a young boy trying to have sex with a girl, and because
a man, 18 plus, 16 plus.
Oh, right. A man trying to have sex with a woman, right? Or whatever. Because you consume pornography, sometimes, like, most of the time, it's voyeurism. It's you see a guy fuck a girl.
Yeah.
Not, obviously there's like POV stuff, but still you're looking at a guy fucking another girl, right? A lot of that has been associated with an increased inability to actually get an erection when you're actually having sex with your partner.
Yeah. And it's you setting what's the word? Like an, sorry? An unrealistic expectation of what it should be like. Because for many teenagers and young adults, their first time it's to put it bluntly, it's horrible. Their first time it's not smooth, and neither is their first couple times but then when a teenager who's been watching porn for what's so funny?
Nothing. Go on.
A teenager who's been watching porn for years, he'll be like,
just ignore it.
They'll be like, why is it, you know, why have I been going for 2 hours and I still can't ejaculate? Like, am I supposed to use a different position? Am I supposed to, worst case, am I supposed to choke her? Am I supposed to hit her? Like, and then it just spirals out of control, and then I guess that can lead to lack of self-confidence, and then that contributes to erectile dysfunction. So yes, I mean,
I can see the logic flow.
Yeah.
I can see the logic flow.
I'll congraze
I
it.
wasn't expecting that ending.
I me neither, but yeah, I can
What were
see
you
that.
expecting?
I don't know.
And also, like, most men, like Johnny Sins, like, I actually don't know any other male porn star, but
Lil D.
yeah, I don't know who that is, but Lil D, right?
Who's Lil D?
Mandingo.
I don't know who that is.
You don't know?
Or like
Who's
Baby
that?
Alien. No, not Baby Alien. Not Baby Alien.
Oh no, you know the
Hezbollah.
I don't know who that is.
No,
Hezbollah?
no,
Isn't
I don't
he like
think
a...
that's it. You know, like the picture of like the really big black dude. It's like sitting
Oh,
on the edge of the bed.
yeah. Apparently the
That's
photo's
his name.
photoshopped. It's not actually that big.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
What's his name?
I don't think it's Mandingo. It's
No,
a different
the
name.
black man that goes like this.
Yeah, he's like sitting on the edge of the
And
bed.
when his dick's just like...
I don't know who that
I'm
you're
like,
talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right? No way.
No way. Okay, we're gonna put a photo... Okay, we're gonna blur it, but we're gonna put a photo on the YouTube video. But like,
Okay.
there are unrealistic expectations for what a male body looks like.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, hypothetically, if I were someone struggling with like self-esteem issues when it comes to sex,
Yeah.
I would be thinking, oh, the person I'm trying to have sex with thinks that I have a 7-inch cock or something, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously, for most people, this isn't the case.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that puts a lot of pressure on yourself.
No, I agree.
Yeah, body image issues. I think it's actually much more intense for women, because you see a lot of OnlyFans people saying like, "Oh, my pussy's tight. Oh, my pussy's pink." Like, for some people, because of racial issues or just like how your body's built.
Racial issues.
No, like racial, not issues, but like factors, racial factors.
Genetics.
Yeah, genetics. It sometimes just isn't pink. It sometimes just isn't tight. No, but this is like it's a serious point.
No, I agree.
Yeah. But it's like there's like a discrimination towards. I'm digging myself into a fucking hole.
No, I know.
Discrimination towards like different vagina
who,
shapes, everything
like
like
who isn't
that.
pink, who isn't tight. I've literally heard some of my friends say, "Oh, she sucked at sex because she was loose." Loose means she has sex with a lot of people. That's just completely untrue.
Yeah.
Women.
Isn't that a good thing? What she says.
Well, I think pornography
Well,
has actually.
here's the thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing because
That's the thing. When your pelvic floor relaxes, it's supposed to mean that you're comfortable.
Yeah,
And, like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Kind of, and so like when people, there's kind of controversy over the phrase "tight" in relation to women's, vaginas, because people are thinking, okay, but if she's super clenched up, that means she's probably not very comfortable.
Yeah. That's actually most oftentimes the case. And when like people have sex on camera and say, "Oh, it's so tight, it's so tight," I think that's actually that's like de-educate. What the fuck?
Miseducated.
No, it's like miseducation. No,
Yeah.
towards the wider population who think it's supposed to be tight, who thinks it's supposed to be pink, otherwise it's like ugly or whatever. God damn.
I think you said the word pink like 15 times.
Well, that's what they say. Okay.
That's what they be saying.
Yeah.
Edith, going back to your point of regulation as an alternative.
I didn't say that it was a viable alternative, really.
But
I
what
just said that
alternative would there be other than regulation?
other to banning it.
Not banning, regulating. You could, I guess this is a form of regulation, but you could make it harder to access. I mean, porn is so easy to access now. I could go on my phone and get to Pornhub within like 20 seconds.
Okay.
And even on Instagram, there's soft porn, there's just, it's just so easy to access these days where it's almost normal
Right.
to watch porn. I think it shouldn't be this normal because it's,
So how would they make it harder to access?
well, I guess you could, well, it is a form of regulation, but you could, not to say that Instagram doesn't already do this, but get rid of soft porn off Instagram. Maybe.
What classifies as soft porn?
Then that's like a whole nother issue. Like,
No, just for example.
I don't know, like a girl.
Promoting OnlyFans.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if a girl with like big boobs just like kind of like jumps? That's that soft porn?
No, because that's
Okay.
not her intention.
Okay.
If her intention is, if it's like,
Well,
oh, beach dump, and it's a picture of her in a swimsuit, and then the friends, I don't know, a picture of a coconut, then you know that's
Sorry.
I
What are we talking about here?
like an actual coconut because she's on a beach, right? But if it's like, oh, subscribe, oh, link in bio, click the link in bio, and it's like,
okay.
and she's like, I don't know, yeah, then that's all.
Yeah, that's true.
I think getting back to the point of the question, like, should it be banned? I think you either ban it, you don't ban it, or you regulate it.
Yeah.
And I think even with regulation, the issues that you were saying with banning porn completely, it's still gonna, if you regulate it, it's still gonna create some kind of black market. And the only difference between having it regulated and banned in that situation is that more people can access it when it's regulated.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
you still get the black markets and exploitation behind the scenes because of it being regulated.
Well, that's what's difficult about it. I was trying to reconcile it in my head, and I was just thinking about how, at the end of the day, if we're talking about some of the negative, like the point of regulation would be to counteract some of the negative externalities that we've already mentioned, right? And so, but for example, some of the negative externalities, such as racial stereotyping and, you know, violence towards women, at the end of the day, those things can be argued to be subjective. Like, there are some grey areas in terms of those kind of things as well. And so, like, it would be difficult to regulate in that because it's not like black and white. Pardon the pun.
To me, it sounds like you're leaning towards it should be banned.
I'm leaning, the more I've talked about it, the more I'm leaning towards the side that it should be banned. I'm leaning more towards this side than I was when I began. I've always
Okay.
been kind of leaning towards that side, just I'm slightly further now.
Okay. I think we've gone pretty decent time. And I
Okay.
really need to piss. So if Jack, you're not going to sit in my spot, I'm going to end it here. Okay. So
Okay.
any concluding thoughts? I know that you just basically said that you've basically
Yeah,
gone
I
to the
think
direction of banning it.
there are positive, you know, possibilities. However,
Yeah.
they're possibilities, and there are negative, you know, things that are fact. You know, there is racial profiling, there is exploitation, whereas like some of the positives are kind of
Yeah.
more kind of if buts and maybes,
Mm.
and so I think the net effect is more negative than it is positive.
I mean, I think, as I said in the intro, and I'll reiterate it, is that it's undoubtedly bad, done more bad than good. And yes, there may be a few benefits. However, I think the status quo is extremely flawed, and there needs to be stuff done.
Mhm.
So I think maybe not banned, but something needs to change because
Yes.
at its current state, it is extremely flawed. It's harmful towards young men, young women. It's unethical. It's immoral. There's plenty wrong with it. So I think something needs to be done.
Yeah.
Maybe not banned, but I don't know. It's hard to regulate. So yeah.
Anything you want to say, Jack? Okay. Well, thanks for watching this episode of The Objective Hour. Click here if you want to see more videos. The icon here, I don't know what it's called. But yeah, we'll see you next week on The Objective Hour. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Okay.